Internet. The GM was caught watching some questionable early 2000s anime, so we're not talking to them right now.
Oh my God.
Because they have to defend themselves in a court of law now. And we'll see how it goes next week. You know, we're gonna give them a proper defense, and they'll have a judge, you know, a jury and everything, a jury of their peers and such. But you know, we'll see how it goes. He's fucking dead, Jim. I fucking killed him. You good over there?
No, I can't. No, that was the conversation we just had. I fucking can't.
I mean, we're subtweeting ourselves here, so.
Oh my God. Oh my fucking.
And
oh my God, you know, I'd like the fucking listener, Manchurian Candidate, bro. I can't.
You know, dear listener, if you're like, what do you mean by questionable early 2000s anime? If you weren't watching anime at that time period, I don't know how to explain it to you. It was a different time. You had to be there.
You had to be there.
It was a certain kind of vibe. You had to be there.
You had to be there, terrified and looking over your shoulder into your bedroom every 2 secons. Because if your parents walked in, there's no universe where you were explaining the context.
No,
you were just grounded forever.
There was no justifying it.
No,
it's like when the unks mention like the early '90s OVA stuff, and it's like you had to be there kind of. You know what I mean? It was like that era.
Yeah.
Which I think it's fair to qualify that shit as unk material now, right?
Somebody was like. I was watching a video and they were like, yeah, Ninja Scroll. Remember that? And I was like, oh my God, I do fucking watch. I remember
I've still never watched Ninja Scroll. I need to watch that.
I watched that way younger than I absolutely should have been.
I missed a lot of those early OVA bangers.
Yeah, they were good. You can watch Ninja Scroll on Prime. Not that you should support Amazon right now.
Oh, no, I know you can. Yeah, I know there's lots of places to watch it. Speaking of shit that's on Prime, I'm really annoyed that Tatsuki Fujimoto 17 through 26 is only on Prime.
Oh,
and like, yes, I know I can Yarhar that shit, but like, it's still annoying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not gonna say
what
I do anything dubiously legal, but you know, I think Eiichiro Oda would be proud of me with the way that I'm watching Primal right now.
Anyway. God, I can't. What? Hold on. I did just have the thought. Wait, at what point do we qualify as unk yet? Are we at that point? I am
literally an uncle, so yeah, I think so.
You are literally an uncle. That's true. I'm not. I don't have the capacity to be one. So there's that.
I mean, you can do the thing that a lot of Hispanic and European families do, where like you're a cousin, but you're 30 years older, so you are now uncle.
That's probably gonna happen soon-ish. So yeah, that's fair. But anyway, this is neither here nor there. We're talking about tabletop games, not anime. Although, you know, there's crossover. I think there's crossover in the nerd branding between those two things.
Stand by next week.
Well, yeah, exactly, literally. I mean, I was literally oh no, but that wasn't on recording. Never mind. I was gonna say I was literally just talking about Jujutsu Kaisen, but that was not on recording. But whatever, still gets the point across. What the fuck's going on? What are we doing? Where are we? Who are you people? Actually, you know what? Starting with weeb shit was a great option because we're about to talk about Fabula Ultima, which is ultimately kind of weeb shit. Like, you know, it's inspired by JRPGs. That qualifies to most normies as weeb shit, so, you know, we're not that far away from the subject material, to be honest.
Yeah.
To be clear, I say weeb shit affectionately here.
Yeah.
Not derogatorily.
Well, it's a little bit of both.
I mean, it can be both. I don't mean
it's that meme where it's like one person that says weeb like under their body, and then a person that says weeb walks up and smacks them in the face and goes, fucking weeb.
I mean, there is also that, yes. Well, let's put it this way. When I refer to Fabula Ultima as weeb shit, I don't mean derogatorily. Put it that way.
No, we can't. We're cool with Emma.
Well, that, but also I think the brand of weeb that Fabula Ultima does is cool shit. So, you know. But yes, we're talking about Fabula Ultima again because game cool, and because there's new content out for it, and because I'm still running a campaign in it. So, fucking yeah. And because fuck D&D.
Yeah.
I feel like something weird happened to the news recently with D&D 2, but now I'm forgetting what it was. I feel like I remember hearing about something, and it has now escaped me completely.
Oh, see, I was gonna ask you if it was all of the rules inconsistencies in Stranger Things, because that's super funny. Where they're like,
what?
There's like so keep in mind, Stranger Things came out in the 80s. I think the only thing that they were up to at that point was AD&D. And there's a whole bit where Mike is talking to Will, and he's like, "You're a sorcerer," and everyone being like, "Oh, sorcerer didn't come out until 3.5." Mike, how would you know that?
I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I have heard some people talk about this stuff.
That's why I kept making the joke of, back in my day, you were called a magic user, and you had to be an elf.
It's true. It's true. Well, no. A magic user had to be a human. An elf was a separate class,
right?
That also had magic.
Yeah.
Which is even goofier.
Back in my day, if you were a priest, you had to be a dwarf.
You had to be no. Dwarf was also a class.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Cleric was human. Dwarf was the class. I think you could be a dwarf cleric if you. I don't remember. Yeah, there was some weirdness there. But yes, elf and dwarf were classes because there was no rules for like species/race. So, but anyway, Fabula Ultima doesn't have any rules for species.
True. Only quirks.
Yeah. Well, or just description.
Paladin's gonna hit me with this and go, "No, the quirks count." I know it. I can feel it in my bones that he's going to hit me with that next week.
They don't count. They don't count because they're not a literal species mechanic. There are some of them that imply that your character is different. Yeah, but they're not like a literal species mechanic. But that's not. He's
still going to attack me about it. I can feel it in my bones.
I mean, maybe they don't. He's wrong. They don't count.
Now he's gonna double text me because he's like, "You subtweeting me, bitch."
That's fine. It's not a subtweet if you call their name out. That's just a tweet.
Oh, true. That's just a call out.
That's just a regular call out. Before we get on to that, though, as per our usual, if you'd be so inclined, hit follow or subscribe. God damn it. Why is the word subscribe so hard to say? Hit follow or subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. And if you're feeling generous, we have a donation link in the description that goes to our editor. Yeah. All right, so why are we bringing up Fabula again? Just because we want to? Maybe a little bit, but also because the Bestiary is out. Sort of. Kind of. Technically, it's not 100% out. I have access to it because I backed it on Kickstarter. I have the Kickstarter preview, which technically is still subject to change, but as far as I'm aware, it is pretty much the done version. It's just there's gonna be some last minute, editorial, like, oh, misspell here, we need to adjust there, blah blah, like that kind of stuff. But the core of the book is done, as far as I understand it. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on this one if I'm wrong on that for some reason, but me looking at the book, it certainly seems done. So, yeah, but they are labeling it as a beta PDF, technically. So, just for the sake of it, if something changes drastically. If something changes, I don't think anything's going to change drastically, but if something changes, and I look like a dirty liar, that's why, because technically I'm looking at a beta PDF. Any fucking way, though. Yeah, the Bestiary is out. So, just to explain what the Bestiary even is, just in case anybody needs the context, Fabula came out originally as a single book RPG. It was just the rule book, and that was it. It didn't have any kind of DMG monster manual supplement thing. None of that. It was just the game came out as is. Then, as time went on, they added the atlas, what they refer to as the atlases, to the game, which were the Atlas of Natural Fantasy, the Atlas of High Fantasy, and the Atlas of Techno Fantasy. That's not the order they came. I think it was High Fantasy came out, then Techno, then Natural, if I remember correctly. And those were basically the game being. Those were basically supplements that explained different styles of play that you could do with Fabula, as well as adding a couple of extra rules, like each of the atlases has a couple extra classes. The atlases also have extra optional rules, like the Atlas of Techno Fantasy has this entire sub-mechanic about technospheres, which we talked about in an episode. The Atlas of Natural Fantasy has rules for like crafting stuff. Those atlases were the books that came out after the main book, and they did not have monsters in them like regular standard stat blocks. They all had 5 boss stat blocks that went from like level 10 to 60, I think. But they were bosses, right? They weren't like random goons or you know, soldiery guys or anything like that. They were explicitly bosses. So you were, in terms of pre-made stat blocks that you could slap into your game a la a D&D monster manual, Fabula was kind of lacking because the base book has some of that, but the bestiary section of the base book is not that long. It's like, I want to say something like, what'd you say?
About 20 some odd pages.
Yeah. And it's like 10-ish monsters of each of the monster types.
Oh, I was wrong. It's about 40 pages, but it's very simple.
Isn't that many? Hold on. It goes from like, well, counting from the stat block specifically, it goes from 324 to I'm scrolling 353. So that's like,
oh yeah,
what was that like? That's like 30-ish something. 29, right? Did I do that math right? Whatever. So yeah, it's not super long, and there's not that many stat blocks in the stat blocks in the bestiary. So in the bestiary, sorry, I should clarify. There's not that many stat blocks in the bestiary of the core rulebook. The reason for that being that the game gave you rules and quite thorough and useful rules for making your own monsters, making your own enemies. NPCs is how this game refers to them. They don't use the phrase like monsters. They just say NPCs. The problem is that making your own NPCs in Fabula Ultima is actually kind of hard and pretty involved. And if you're not familiar, if you're sort of uncomfortable in the GM seat, or you're a little uncomfortable with the genre of video game that Fabula is pulling from, which is to say JRPGs, there was a lot of there was some friction running the game for people where it felt like a lot. It can be very fun, but it can also be difficult because you're expected to really tailor all of the stat blocks that you create for your game. You're expected to really tailor them to your players, both in terms of challenging them and also letting them, you know, basically looking at like what your players have and giving them easy victories, hard victories in between, and like really building things that fit them as a group. Because the game got quite a bit more popular than the team expected, it sort of, and they say this in the foreword of the new bestiary book, the game sort of expanded out between beyond the original audience. So there were a lot of people that were maybe not that familiar with, Final Fantasy or fucking Star Ocean and Xenogears and Chrono Trigger, not that familiar with its source material. Ergo, they were having an issue with running the game. Ergo, they decided to make the Bestiary as a, here you go, this will hopefully make your life a little bit easier. And even, I'll say up front here, even for me, who I'm very familiar with JRPGs as a video game genre, I have played many of them. Two of my favorite series ever are Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. So I know exactly where this game is pulling from. And even for me, I'm like, damn, bro, making NPCs in this game is fucking hard. I know it probably doesn't, you maybe don't notice it as much on the player side of the table, but it's been a fucking struggle running this game sometimes. I mean, I ain't even gonna lie.
I've definitely heard, I've heard you, I've heard you be like, bro, what the fuck? Sometimes when we're doing things, just I was not prepared for y'all to pub stomp this thing, and just kind of okay, I can tell that there's definitely some frustration going on.
Pub stomp this thing, or I was not prepared for, or it can go the other way too. I wasn't prepared for you guys to have absolutely no answer to this problem. You know what I mean? I missed, because you're designing the monster and you give them a certain ability that you realize, oh, this accidentally nullifies everything they have, and I didn't mean it to, but I wasn't thinking of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On a really basic level, obviously this one you probably wouldn't happen very often, but if you think about it on a really basic level, if you have an entire group that has no ranged options, and then you throw a swarm of flying zombie bats at them, and then the group's like, oh god, we have literally no way to hit them, we are so fucked, and then you as a GM go, oh fuck, I forgot about that. You know what I mean?
We had a similar thing happen to us. I can't remember what we were fighting, but it was right around when we fought the giant bear. Oh no, it was when we fought the Serpent of Sorrows, and I have some shuriken, Fran has some shuriken, and Gennaro didn't have the cannon prepped, so we were like, we really don't have an answer to this.
Right, but that was okay in that case because you didn't necessarily need to kill the flying enemies, right? So for that one, I wasn't stressing it too much, you know what I mean? It wasn't like I shut down your options completely. You could still attack the boss because the flying guys were his minions, right? But it is that idea, that idea can snowball into a bigger problem for sure. So all of that being said, does what does this bestiary do for you? Is it helpful? Is it achieving the objective? And basically my take on this bestiary, I had a feeling this was going to be the case. I was pretty confident this would be true before this book came out. Having now looked at and used this book for a couple of sessions, this is now required reading material.
Oh, really?
If you, yeah, I'm gonna be real, and it sucks a little bit because it means that the game has kind of gotten more expensive. But if you want to run Fabula, I think you're almost required to pick up the bestiary. I really, really, really heavily encourage it, because it helps a lot of the pain points, but it just gives you, just by virtue of all of the stat blocks that are in the book, it generates you ideas for all of the different kinds of potential abilities you can give enemies. Because the thing about the way the mechanics of Fabula work is you can do a lot of weird shit with enemy abilities if you just kind of think outside the baseline mechanics. You look at the standard mechanics that the players have access to and that the game functions, you're like, okay, but you could do so much more than that. But that's not immediately apparent until you've analyzed. Basically, looking through the bestiary, you will see mechanics where multiple times you will go, I would have never thought to do that. That's a great idea. This gave me an idea. You know what I mean?
I'm going to be real.
Like, that kind of shit.
You don't have to go more than, 10 pages into the actual bestiary stuff with the quick assembly. When you look at the hunter, which the game says is the most basic enemy you're going to run into, its customization and roll skill options are super fucking cool.
Oh, well, hold that thought, because we'll get there. You're jumping. You're spoilers.
Damn.
But yeah, we'll get there. But like, basically what I'm saying is the stat blocks delivered to you. If you don't use anything else in the book, if you don't use a single stat block from the book, you just look at the stat blocks in this book for ideas, it will help you a shitload, because there's just. You know what? Here, let me give you a perfect example. Hold on, I gotta find the stat block I have in mind. Give me 1 sec. Okay, so Isaiah, if you go all the way down to under the wolves category,
yeah,
and you look at the Garmer. Side note, I would have loved to have this stat block when we started the fucking campaign, because the stat block would have been perfect.
I thought of that exact.
It would have been perfect,
thing, my guy.
It's exactly what I needed.
Oh my god, it's so funny. I was like,
I saw it.
I wonder if you would have used these for that fight.
Yes, I absolutely. It's exactly what I wanted. Anyway, neither here nor there. So, but the thing that's really interesting about this. So, if you go down to its ability, so there's a level 10. Elite beast monster in the bestiary. It's a Garmer. It's like a big scary monster wolf thing. Level 10 is the beginning of the game, right? Players start at level 5. It has an ability called Stalk the Prey. When the Garmer performs the guard action, it begins hunting down a random enemy it can see. When the Garmer performs Bloodthirsty Fangs, which is one of its attacks, while hunting down an enemy it is able to target, it must target that enemy. If it does, the attack deals 10 extra damage and the hunting ends, even if the attack missed. The hunting also ends as soon as the Garmer performs the guard action again or is suffering from 2 or more status effects. Now, that's not that complicated of an ability, right? Effectively, it means you perform the guard action, target a player, get extra damage when you hit them, right? That's effectively what that means. But the hunting down part of that ability is effectively a status effect that this monster puts on the players that is wholly unique to this monster, right? Like, hunting down is not a mechanic in the base game. Hunting down is a mechanic that only exists in this monster's stat block. And that's one tiny example of a level 10 enemy. There are tons of monsters with this kind of ability where effectively the monster stat block creates a whole new mechanic just for that fight, for that creature.
And something where I think that's worth mentioning is one of the things I like most about Stalk the Prey is it actively shows you that what you can do by using actions that you wouldn't normally think of, right? Like, it specifically says when
beyond just basic attack.
Yeah, like it says when you perform the guard action, that puts you in a mindset to where you can go, oh, I can use other action types to proc special abilities.
Other effects. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And again, level 10 monster, so like not even that fancy. Because there are some other creatures such as Zernitra, the dragon goddess. Zernitra? Okay, I wasn't sure how to say it. You look at those abilities and it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. There's so much shit in that stat block.
I love Zernitra. She's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically the dragon goddess. It's an homage to Bahamut. It's a very obvious homage to Bahamut.
Another cool thing about the stat block stuff, each stat block comes with a rotation, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, so we'll get to that in a second, but that's another reason for me to say, like, this book is now mandatory reading. So long story short, is the bestiary worth it? Yes. 110% yes. This book is like, if you are GMing Fabula, this will be the most useful thing on the entire fucking planet. I've already used it a shitload in all of like 3 sessions. I'm already like, this has saved my ass. So yes. All right. So As for the book itself, we'll skip to... it starts with a little before you start section. It talks about... This book is a bestiary. It is a monster manual. It's also a little bit of a DMG type book too, because it does kind of guide you on doesn't just give you the monsters. It also is like, this is how you should use the monsters, right? This is how we expect NPCs to work in this game. So like the first bullet point it has is, it says, so it starts with a section called Game Master's Principles, which is the idea of like, how should you be thinking about using enemies in this game? And it starts with interesting and engaging. And it's like, your goal isn't to make each foe as strong and optimized as possible, but rather to showcase unique gameplay interactions. The NPC creation rules give you a lot of freedom. You could give an enemy a reaction skill, such as after this creature loses hit points, they deal 9 billion damage to every enemy they can see. And that would technically be allowed. This should illustrate that enemy design is not an arms race between you and the players. Such a race would be pointless, as the Game Master is granted unlimited resources. Instead, conflict scenes are a concert, or perhaps a jam session, in which the enemy design and the player's tactics and characters' construction choices should sing together, right? So it's like, you don't just throw super optimized things. Like, that's not the point. Then it mentions designed for your group, which is what I was saying before. When you're making an encounter, it needs to be for your players at your table, which means your encounters are not necessarily going to work at somebody else's table, because you want to basically tailor make everything to some degree. I mean, you don't necessarily need to tailor make every little element, but you want to tailor make it to a point that it both works with the players and also challenges the players and also gels with the like the flow of your particular campaign, because there's so many, because the players have so many ways that they can build their characters. You as the GM have to be willing to build your NPCs in lots of different ways in order to fit all of the stuff they can potentially do or not do. There's the idea of no retrying, which basically it says in a video game, you're kind of expected to lose when you fight a really hard boss. You're expected to lose, reload the game, and try again with new knowledge. In Fabula or any other tabletop game, you can't really do the lose and retry thing, at least not baseline assumptions. You can't. So you need to make sure that players are able to learn about the opponent. It says no scripted defeats. This one I thought was really interesting, and I'm half tempted to ignore it, but I also kind of get what they're getting at. Basically, it's saying that you should never set up a conflict scene where the heroes are supposed to lose. It says if the enemy is currently unbeatable for narrative reasons, you should frame the conflict as an escape or a situation where the players need to survive for a specific number of rounds and make this information known. Even though scripted defeats are a thing in video games, you should reserve that element in Fabula as a way to explain how the players lost the fight but weren't killed. Because in Fabula, when you go down, you don't die, you surrender. So if all the players surrender, that's your scripted defeat situation.
Right. I get what they're saying. The idea that the game is specifically saying, don't make the scripted loss a fight. Make it something else, like a series of skill checks to determine what the degree of loss is. No, I pretty much agree with that. Because ultimately, if the players find out that they're supposed to lose, it's just going to feel shitty. So they're like, all right, so we just wasted 3 hours for nothing. Like,
I both get it, and I get it, and also kind of want to ignore it a little bit at the same time. I'm probably not going to, but there's a part of me that kind of wants to.
No, man, I get it. Like, on a player side, you understand that would feel like not great. But on a GM side, yes, you realize that there is some use to that kind of feeling.
Yes.
It evokes a very specific vibe in the campaign.
Yes. Or at the very least, a very specific moment in the like narrative arc. And then we have the 90%, which this one's kind of funny. If players make the right choices and figure out a good strategy, their odds of winning should be 90%, not 50%. Which I was like, oh, okay. They've already done what the game wants from them, so they deserve it. Basically, if like they figured out the strat to win, like, then they've won. That's the point. In short, successful conflict design hinges on rewarding and punishing different strategies and character builds. Use the freedom granted by the NPC creation rules to set up situations where a less beloved ability is key to success and where an overused ability is initially negated but can shine later in the conflict. Basically, like, don't be in a situation where players can always go for the same answer all the time. And also don't be in a situation where the players never use a particular ability because the thing that the ability does just never comes up. Then it talks about some assumptions about the group. So basically the way they designed the NPCs in this book is based on an average group of 4-player characters, and then they have a bulleted list, and it basically says an average group of 4 players can do, and then it's this big, I'm not gonna read the whole list, but it's this big list of shit. Like, it says one character can reliably restore hit points to 3 or more targets at once. And then there's another one that says like one character can control the flow of enemy damage through skills such as protect and provoke. Basically, it's a bulleted list of like, these are kind of the averages we assume when we design the monsters. Then it says, needless to say, no group is going to match the average. Hence, pre-made enemy profiles usually need to be adapted to function correctly in a campaign and often act as a source of inspiration for the GM rather than something to use as is. Basically, we designed it for averages, but we know that most groups are not going to be in that average. So you need to understand when you're looking at this book, GM, that when you're looking at a stat block, you probably will need to make some adjustments to it because there's a chance it doesn't fit your players perfectly, or there's a chance that it, like, you know, there's a chance that either your players completely stomp all over it, or it completely stomps on your players, or there's a mechanic that just doesn't work, yada, yada, yada. So you always have to be aware. They designed for the average, but that doesn't mean everyone's going to hit the average. And again, because of how customizable, because of the customizability, because of the potential to customize their PCs, you have, like, they could drift a lot from the average. This book also assumed a group of 4 players. So, like, if you have 2 or 3, or if you have 5 or 6, you're going to need to probably make adjustments there, too. There's also, immediately after it talks about the averages, it gives you some guidance on if your party is below average or above average. Here's how you can deal with it. It also says with the averages thing, if 3 or more of the above assumptions on the bulleted list are not met, so that bulleted list of like averages that they assume, if your party of players doesn't hit like at least 3 of those, it's probably time to rethink how the characters have been built and improve the balance and distribution of roles within the group. That's another thing this book brings up, and that Fabula as a game in general wants you to do. The idea of making the game work is not solely on the GM. It is expected of the players to also, when necessary, make adjustments. And if the GM is like, all right, guys, you have literally no one who can heal. There is 0 healing in this party. Someone's going to have to make some character adjustments. Otherwise, this is just not going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, I really appreciate the game explicitly says the onus on combat success is shared between GM and players.
Yes, it's not a GM exclusive job.
Yeah,
which is good. That
something like D&D really feels like that's what the DMG is saying.
It feels like D&D wants to say that the onus is on both sides of the table, but doesn't say it.
Well, it gives you no tools to reinforce it.
Yeah, like it doesn't want to. It's like they kind of want to imply it, but not say it explicitly. And so you end up in this situation where culturally, yeah, I think people assume it is all on the GM, but that is largely unfair because the GM is also a player of the game, right? Like they are partaking in the fun. Their side of the fun is different, but they're still partaking in it. So yeah, it should be a group thing. It is a cooperative thing, right? Like you wouldn't, it'd be like if you were playing a board game and, well, maybe that's not a good example because people do that sometimes. What's a better example? It'd be like if you were playing chess and the person you're playing against was like using different rules just because they felt like it. And you're like, wait a minute, the thing we agreed to do was a collaborative game of chess where we follow the same, like you can't, that's not like, we agreed to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the players being like, I can't believe you beat me. Like, yeah, that's the point of the game.
That's the point. Yeah. And so yes, this book and Fabula at large is very explicit on that. Then it talks a bit about communication and what the GM should tell the player. So, outside, I'll just read this little paragraph. Outside of enemy profiles and rules, there's one aspect of a conflict that is essential to make the battle fair and balanced: communication. Essentially, this means what information the GM decides to provide and how they do so. This makes a world of difference and can transform a simple conflict into a true nightmare, just as it can make a powerful and extremely punishing foe into an interesting, fair, and highly interactive challenge. The list below summarizes information the Game Master is always expected to provide clearly and explicitly without paraphrasing. The thing that I think is really interesting is a couple of these, I wouldn't have thought to do that. So you should always say if a creature's in crisis. Okay, yep, which is when they hit half HP. That's fine. I've been doing that. When a creature suffers damage, you should reveal their affinity to the damage type. I've been doing that. Always say when a creature loses, recovers, or spends hit points or mind points, and how many. I did not expect the how many part. I have not been doing that.
I always say I necessarily feel like that's necessary. Like on the player side, I don't know if I feel like that's necessary.
Well, this is the GM. This is GM specific.
Well, I know, but like, you know, I in theory, right, you're doing it for the player's benefit, but it's funny because I, as a player, I'm like, I don't think I need to know that, but fair enough.
Oh, like you don't care, you're saying. I see.
But like it's information that's good to know, but like that's like, you know, in the same way that I don't want to know exactly how much health the bad guy has, you know what I'm saying? I like doing the like, okay, so we've done 200 points of damage, it's probably resistant to about a third of that, so we got to figure it. Like,
sure,
I like that. I like the mystery of like, and now it's in crisis and everyone goes, oh my god, thank god, you know what I mean? Like, if I know that it's got 350 health, it takes the wonder away. It is worth
pointing out. Well, this isn't, no, only when it loses, recovers, or spends, not how much it has. Right, so this is saying if an enemy uses a regeneration ability and regains 20 HP, you tell the players he regained 20 HP. You don't say what his HP is at.
Oh, my bad. Okay, yeah. No, then that's more
right.
Fun. Yeah, that's better.
It's the thing in Final Fantasy where the enemy uses a regeneration ability and the green number pops up. Yeah. Right? That's what this is saying. Not what is their health at, but how many points did they regain? Which I have not been doing. Then it also says, always say which status effects a creature is currently suffering from. I've basically been doing that. Always declare defense and magic defense scores when those scores are used to establish the difficulty level. Basically, always tell the players the armor class they're trying to hit, which I also haven't been doing. I was like, okay. Declare the results of a roll and what the creature's high roll is. I have been doing that. I've been rolling in the open. Basically, this game says always roll in the open. Always repeat information. This is just good habit in any game, I think, but they're saying it explicitly. Always repeat any information the players have already obtained about a creature. If that information changes or is no longer applicable, the Game Master is expected, at the very least, to say which elements have changed and may opt to reveal how they changed. If they do not reveal that information, players are allowed to examine the creature's profile again. And then always communicate the effects of spells, attack spells, unique actions, and special rules as soon as they influence a player character in any way. So the example they give is if a boss has a power, like a special ability where they become resentful of a target and lets them deal extra damage, when the boss triggers that resentful ability, or when the player triggers the resentful ability on the boss, you should explicitly tell the player that that happened. Another thing that I would not have necessarily thought to do myself, but I guess I will now. So, which is good. I mean, that's a good one to know for sure. Then we have, so then it talks about, and Isaiah mentioned this before, the routines that the monsters have. So every stat block in this game has a tactic routine, and which is to say like a rotation of what order they do their abilities in. So for example, the Death Knight has a relatively simple routine where he does Frightful Swing, Death's Bitter Embrace, and then Infernal Slash. And then he restarts those three abilities. Observe this routine. Players can assume they will have a moment of respite between Frightful Swing and Infernal Slash each round, since Death's Bitter Embrace doesn't deal damage or cause immediate negative effects. Basically, what the game is saying with this whole bit is that they provide tactics for each of the monsters, each of the NPCs, and like what order they do things in. And the reason you do that is A, because it's kind of a reference to JRPGs and how they work, but B, also because it lets your players be able to plan more tactfully. Tactfully is not a word.
Tactically. No, well, tactfully is with better.
Tactfully is different.
If you do something tactfully,
I was trying to say tactfully. Yeah.
Tactically, yeah.
Tactically is the word I wanted there. Basically, the point is the players can plan more if they know, okay, the monster does this ability, then this ability, then this ability. All right, so on turn 3, he's going to do a big AoE ability, which means everybody needs to prepare. But on turn 1, he's just going to, he's going to heal himself, which means we don't have to worry about incoming damage on turn 1. And it's the idea that that's part of the tactical element of this game, of that kind of planning around things. I have been trying to do this and sort of failing because I honestly just keep forgetting. But, that's just I'm trying, I just keep forgetting.
No, I mean, I think it's a difficult thing to engage because you have, assuming the routines thing, you kind of have to not necessarily disregard what's in the best interest of the monster, but it's a little anathema to how you think about playing the game, right? I, as player, don't think about it as, well, I really need to heal, but my rotation says that I should I should fail cleave. But yeah, I think it's just it's like an artifact of the player facing side of things, and also like you don't necessarily want to be.
A game like D&D tells you always to do the most optimal. I mean, they even said they designed the monster stat blocks they base the CR numbers of monsters under the assumption that the GM is always doing the most advantageous thing possible for the monster, right? Always going for the best option. Right? Like that was how they balanced, or that was how they calculate. That was part of how they calculated CR. So a game like that is like, yes, always do the most optimal option. And then Fabula is no, have a specific order of things. And part of the reason you want to have a specific order of things, which I forgot to say before, is if you have really powerful abilities, but the players know, okay, like you're fighting a dragon and the players know, okay, on turn 3, the dragon uses its breath weapon. You as the GM can make the breath weapon really dangerous and scary because the players always know it's on turn 3, so they have time to prepare for that. So it lets you swing a little harder because you're giving them that information. Essentially, as the game puts it, it's tough but fair because it's a really it's a strong and dangerous thing, but they have the knowledge so they can respond. Which is actually, funny enough, something that I've talked about doing in D&D before anyway. Like the idea of making an ability really strong, but as long as you give the players forewarning, then you have more wiggle room. Yeah. So Fabula is like, yes, that's how that should work. After the whole tactics bit, it talks about ranks and parts. This is in the base game. It's just the idea that enemies are either soldier, elites, or champions, and what that kind of means for how you design them. And then the parts thing is just you can break up a big single monster into multiple parts. So, for example, if you have a big golem thing, the golem could be broken up into three separate stat blocks where it's like golem body, golem legs, golem arms. And those 3 separate stat blocks, mechanically, you're treating kind of like 3 enemies, but fictionally it's just one big enemy. One of the main reasons you want to do that is because there's a lot of abilities in the game that specifically function around the idea of hitting multiple targets or having multiple targets. And so if you're constantly throwing singular enemies at your players, you are negating a bunch of abilities in the game that are for multiple enemies. For the easy example being the multi attacks, which allows you to hit multiple enemies with a singular attack roll. That is a useless power. Like the Weapon Master's Blade Storm is a completely useless skill if the players never fight more than one big enemy.
Yeah, keep single target attacking, yeah.
Yeah, so the game is like, if you want to throw single enemies at them a lot, break them up into parts. Then there's a little talk about elemental interactions and how those work. Basically, it's just there's like a Pokemon style. These elements are strong against this. Blah blah blah. Nothing crazy there.
Well, it's interesting that they have a holy trinity, right? They've got earth, lightning, and wind, but fire and ice are not part of that. Like you never really expect
fire and ice oppose each other directly.
Yeah, but like usually expect them to be part of like a quintessent, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, they broke it up kind of weird.
Yeah. Light and dark you always expect to be like its own thing. Yeah, the fire and ice.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, basically what Isaiah is saying is that earth, lightning, wind are in their own little triangle, and then fire and ice are broken up as opposing, and then light and dark are also opposing. And then physical and poison don't belong to anything. They're kind of their own things. So it's a little weirder than Pokemon, but it's kind of that idea. Mm-hmm. Then there's this section about pacing, what it phrases as pacing, dynamism, stability. Basically, you always need to balance the idea of don't make a fight too samey by nothing ever changing, but there needs to be some degree of stability. Like the rules of the fight can't change every single turn, because then it just becomes impossible for the players to learn the strategy of what they need to do to beat the thing. Right? So it's that balancing act. The more stuff changes, the more interesting a fight can be, but if you change things too much, it just becomes aggravating and frustrating because the players can't actually learn anything about their opponent, and then they can't actually employ any strategies. And then it goes in talking about the idea of piggybacking off of that idea of dynamism and stability. It goes into frequency and effect. Frequency basically saying how, you want to, if an ability, it basically comes down to, if an ability happens a lot, then it can't be too powerful or too overwhelming. If an ability happens less often, it can hit harder, right? It can have a bigger effect if it doesn't happen. So for example, if you have an effect that happens only when an enemy hits crisis, which is when they hit half HP, that's only probably going to happen most likely once during a fight. It can happen it can happen more than once if they heal, but it's not going to happen that often. So you can make that a little more impactful. But if you have an ability that's like every time this enemy takes damage, that's going to happen a lot. You got to be a little more careful. And it's just that idea. It's an idea that I've talked about a lot in games where, if an ability doesn't come up, this is a thing that this comes up a lot with the Ranger in D&D, right? We've talked about this a bunch. If the ability doesn't come up that often, then make it really, really powerful, right? The Ranger's favored terrain back in the day didn't come up very often. But also, it wasn't very good. So even when it did come up, it didn't really matter that much. Instead, okay, if it's not going to come up a lot, make it a big deal when it does come up. Not to go down the D&D what the fuck rabbit hole, but yeah. Fabula is in agreement with me on this one, basically. I don't know. You have anything to add on that before I move on?
No, I mean, I fought my urges to not do the shit on D&D train thing. Right. No, yeah, I mean, it just kind of goes to, it reinforces that D&D refuses to learn from its contemporaries when its contemporaries are constantly learning from it, mainly its shortcomings. So
learning from it and then moving beyond it. Yeah.
Yeah, and iterating on it to not perfection, but to high degrees of success at the very least.
Yeah. Also, another thing it mentions with the effect bit too is like the changing of the enemy state should not invalidate the player character's options completely. What you want to do when the situation changes is go from encouraging one particular angle of attack to encouraging a different one, right? So for example, the monster's weak to fire. Okay, now for some reason the monster's weak to ice. So the player who is dealing all the fire damage is like, shit, okay, I can't hit them anymore. So now we have to switch up who's our person dealing damage, right? That kind of idea. You don't want it to be a thing where it's like, the monster just can't be hit now.
Yeah, the monster is weak to light. Does anyone have that? No, DM, we don't have that. Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. Right, you're right. Yeah, you don't. Yes, you want to avoid that. Again, building for your group. If you know none of your players can deal light in any way, don't do that. Or if you want to do it, do it as a specific, like, oh shit, this enemy is a problem. Like, make it a moment, but don't make it so that every single monster they come across is only weak to light damage. Right, like that kind of idea too. Then there's a troubleshooting page, which I think is really funny. It's kind of like an FAQ page of, my players do this a lot. How can I deal with it? It's a bunch of responses to deal with different problems. I'm not going to go through it because it's kind of long, but it's a kind of funny, interesting troubleshooting page that gives you different ideas about how to handle, stuff like my players are overly optimized, or my players are the opposite. My players screwed themselves over and I didn't realize it, or why can they inflict so many goddamn status effects and shit like that. Then we get to the meat and potato. I guess not the meat and potatoes, but the real showcase of this book, in my opinion. Obviously, the compendium with all of the stat blocks is a big deal and one of the big focuses of the book. Obviously, right? It's a monster book. It's a bestiary. The quick assembly, however, I really feel like it's cool, and it really is like the most useful thing in the book. So essentially, the core game had rules for designing your own NPCs. Designing NPCs, though, could be quite cumbersome in this game, and by quite cumbersome, I mean like a single stat block taking you over an hour. All right? So, the quick assembly is ultimately actually not that different from the original NPC design system. It just reorganizes things and makes it a little clearer, a little easier, and basically it gives you more lists of things to pick from, which is always easier than coming up with something yourself, right? Which the core book kind of expects you to come up with shit yourself. It doesn't give you like a big list. So it gives you a list, and it also just organizes the enemies, the NPCs that you're making in such a fashion that it just makes your life easier, is the only way I could put it, because it sort of does some of the thinking for you. They call it the quick assembly method. It's not that much faster. I'm going to be clear on this. They say on average, using the quick assembly halves the amount of time required to design NPCs. I'm going to be honest. I think that's a little bit of cap. I think it's a little bit of cap.
I was about to say, what are you going to say? So, that was a fucking lie.
It's a little bit of cap. I wouldn't say half. It does cut down on the time a little bit. But for me, the value of the quick assembly is less about the speed and more about the doing some of the thinking for me so I don't get as stressed out. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it offloads some of the ideas by presenting them in a list and presenting them in a fashion that I can use as a starting point to then jump off of. So the way I would describe it personally, the quick assembly method is the normal method for designing. Like, if I were to recreate the books, I would make the quick assembly the default way to design NPCs, and then I would make the way that's in the core book if you want to do a more advanced version of NPC design, here's that option. That's what I would say. Like, I would rephrase it as like normal method and more complicated method.
Yeah.
Not even really more complicated, just a little more intricate.
More in depth.
More in depth, yeah. Because the big thing about the old method of NPC design, or in the core book, is that it doesn't hold your hand at all. It really expects you to have a bunch of cool ideas for what you want to do and then turn them into mechanics. And like, that's it. Mm-hmm. Which obviously is not bad. It could just be hard sometimes, especially if you've played Fabula already. Different story, but especially if you're new to the game, as I was when I started running the game, it can be hard to be like, okay, mechanically speaking, what can I do with this game? What I have learned from running this game for, I don't know, a while now at this point, is a lot. Mechanically, you could do a lot. Like, more than you would think a lot of the time. It seems like you don't necessarily... Like, sometimes it looks like you don't have that many options, but you do. They're just not immediately apparent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So how does the quick assembly actually work? Basically, the way it works is you pick a role for the NPC. So they're either going to be a brute, a hunter, a mage, a saboteur, a sentinel, or a support. Once you have picked the role, you then have a list of role options and role skills and customizations within the stat block. And basically the book, I'm saying basically too much, the book walks you through, just like in the core book, the book walks you through a series of steps. And with the quick assembly, it's a lot more of picking from a list type steps. So you decide on the role, and then you decide on the NPC's level. In the quick assembly, the level can only be multiples of 10, whereas in the core books, it can be multiples of 5. So it's slightly less granular, which honestly in Fabula arguably doesn't matter that much, because an enemy within 10 levels of the players, not a ton. Because the thing about the way enemies scale, the way players and enemies scale, only 10 level jumps really matter. The 5 level differences are not that influential. For example, NPCs get a bonus to their to their accuracy every 10 levels, right? So the difference between 20 and 25 doesn't matter, but the difference from 20 to 30 does mean that the monster gets a higher accuracy bonus, which means they are going to hit more often. And their damage goes up every 10 levels. Ish. There's some, yeah, more or less. So, multiples of 10, which might sound weird, but with the way this game works, is fine. Obviously, once you've decided on the NPC's profile type, which is to say the roles I was talking about, you give them their hit points and their attributes and their mind points and all that stuff. Those are all going to be in the stat block of the typing. So if you make an enemy a brute, all the brute enemies by default have a dex of 6 and a dex of 8 and insight of 6, might 10, willpower 8. And then they all start with 70 HP, 45 mind points. So when you select the role, that stuff is like set by default. You can always tweak this, obviously, but that's the default. If they're a champion level NPC, which is to say, champion is a ranking type in this game. If they're a champion, you can give them boss skills. You also have the option for negative skills, which is literally you give them a downgrade to give them another potential role or another potential boss skill. So you give them a downgrade for another upgrade. Then you want to decide on your species for your NPC, which will add a couple of species-based skills and or customizations. Then obviously give them a name and a trait, give them names and traits, and then write down their tactics / routine. In terms of what each of those roles are, because I mentioned them by name, but for the sake of description, they're pretty much what they sound like. Brute are your big guys with lots of health. They don't necessarily hit the hardest, and they don't have high defense. They're just fucking thick boys. Hunters are your squishier type guys, but they generally hit real hard and will have a couple of different attack options. Mages are mages. They are the squishiest, but will also have a bunch of different spell options. Hunters are your physical damage dealers. Mages are your magical damage dealers, which is relevant in Fabula because you have things like magic defense and physical defense are 2 separate stats. So that is a relevant distinction. Saboteurs are your debuffers, basically. They don't hit the hardest. They're not the toughest. They don't even have anything that fancy necessarily, but they debuff the players so that their buddies can hurt the players more. So like if you have a saboteur with the hunter, The Saboteur goes, debuff the players, the Hunter hits the player takes more damage. That kind of shit. Sentinels are your big health guys, your tanks, your protector type roles. Sentinels are going to be like your most common soldier rank enemies are generally going to be Sentinels, because the idea is that the minions are protecting their boss, right? So the Sentinels are going to be the knight in armor with a big shield and a sword is a Sentinel who's protecting his squishy mage buddy. That's what the Sentinels are for.
I was kind of curious about the Sentinel thing, because I feel like Sentinel and Brute are filling similar niches.
So Brute, it specifically says that Brutes are generally intended to be solo or smaller group enemies. So it says, if you go to the Brute section, it says, soldier Brutes are not very common since soldiers are designed to be dispatched quickly, and for Brutes, it's the opposite. Nonetheless, they can be used to represent hardy bruisers and bulky monsters, especially those that get stronger when in crisis. It says, elite Brutes are frequent, providing a middle ground between a normal foe and a champion. They have enough hit points to withstand a few heavy blows, but don't qualify as bosses. This rank is perfect for strong monsters and imposing creatures accompanying a patrol of hunters or saboteurs. And then, like, champion Brutes are like big Gamuka guy. If you look at the art in the Brute section, it's a big fucking dinosaur. There's a reason for that.
It's a T-Rex, yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, it's funny that
it's a big T-Rex monster thing.
It's just an armored core.
Like, yes, it is. The mage is a mech. Yeah, the Brute art, it kind of looks like almost like a Devil Ho or something like that.
The intention is that it was a Devil Joe as well.
Yeah, it has that vibe for sure. The intention is basically that, yeah, the Brutes they're not protectors, they're just big meat shields. The Sentinels have abilities, like if you go down and look at some of the role skills that Sentinels have, they have abilities where they actively stop. Like, they can literally stop you from hitting other targets. They can be like, no, you have to hit me. Or they can give abilities that can help other, their allies resist things and stuff like that. Whereas Brute's abilities are like, me big, me punch. Like, me have health and me hit things. And like, Brutes have an ability, for example, when they go down to 0 HP, they stop at 1. And then they have an ability where when they go down to 0, they attack whoever took them out right as they're going down. So like, that kind of shit.
You using the caveman talk? I unga, therefore I bunga.
I bunga, yeah. And then the last role type is support, which the saboteurs are your debuffer. The support is your buffer. The support helps out their buddies, gives them buffs, increase die and healing or help with vulnerabilities or shit like that. You'll also see in the quick assembly section, if an enemy is an elite or a champion, it says to do things like give them extra hit points, give them extra initiative points, give them an additional skill. If they're a champion, it says like multiply their hit points by X, double their mind points, give them plus X to their initiative, blah, 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 based on the X being how many soldiers the champion is replacing, because the way champions work is if something is champion 4, that means it's equivalent to 4 soldier type enemies. And then also a champion, you give a boss skill, and then you'll see the level ranges going from 10 to 60. If they're level 10, give them this. If they're level 20, give them this. When they hit level 30, give them this buff, or not buff, but upgrade, I suppose. It might sound like I'm glossing over a little bit. The quick assembly is really, really good. It's just, there's not much to talk. It's straightforward and gets the job done. And but when you look at it, you're like, okay, I get this. It's very easy to figure out very quickly. And as someone I've actually been using the quick ability for a while now, because there was a playtest document that came out quite a bit before the Bestiary that had a beta version of the quick assembly rules. and they are almost identical to the rules that are in this book. So I've been using this system for a while now. Like, and by a while, I'm talking 10 plus sessions, probably more than that. And it works great.
I'm sure.
Especially,
and
what?
Well, I wanted to go into the, like, we talked about the customizations and the role skills, but I really want to go into those because they're, like, again, when you're talking about the hunter, which is the most common enemy you're going to fight of basic enemies, they really...
Hunter or Sentinel.
Yeah. They really allow you to completely change the game and make it so that two hunter combats will never feel the exact same.
Well,
to an impressive degree.
It is worth noting, though, they do give you plenty of good options. That's true. However, you will see, I forget where it says it, but somewhere in the quick assembly section, it says the quick assembly rules are sort of intentionally limited. Like, they didn't give you an insanely long list of options for skills and stuff. They give you quite a bit to work with, but you will eventually run out. And the intention is you are supposed to run out because that means you can start coming up with your own after you've exhausted the list. So it's kind of like you use the quick assembly method and then eventually you'll be like, all right, now I can do it myself.
Yeah, of course. I just like, well, so, first thought, the amount of fights I think you'd have to do with individual enemies for you to run out of those mix and matches is a lot. Like, yes, they are limited, but role skill hunter, assuming what is a common enemy that we'd be facing at level 30? How many role skills would they have and how many customizations would you give them for a soldier level enemy?
Customization, they would probably have one. At least one of them there. And then role skills, they would end up with like one or two, I think.
So, like, the idea that you could have emergency camouflage mixed with something like strong attack and ambush. So emergency camouflage basically says, when this NPC enters crisis for the first time during a scene, they become invisible to all enemies to the start of their next turn. And then you can give them something like strong attack, which targets their magic defense as opposed to their defense. And then give them ambush during the, or no, not ambush. Where is it? Was it Hunter's Bait? Yeah. After an enemy attack hits or misses the NPC, choose one melee, ranged, or offensive spell. If the result of the accuracy check or magic check is an even number, NPC performs a free normal attack against that enemy. So the idea being like, they jump into hiding, you try to hit them and miss, and they come out of nowhere and do like a cool assassinate ability. But you could also give them opportunist and something like strong attack, again, which would make them more of like a sword master, which is kind of cool. You can use target lock to make them more of like a hunter who's using a bow. Like, the amount of things you can do with just the hunter stat block alone fills so many niches that you effectively have 8, 9, 10 stats in one.
It is also worth pointing out too, you can technically, so rules as written, they don't tell you to do this, but as I just said before, they expect you to go beyond the limitations of the quick assembly eventually. You could steal abilities from the other roles and slot them into a different one too, right?
I was going to bring that up too, yeah. You have no reason not to.
I can take this mage ability and slot it into this hunter. Now, well, the one reason you might say don't do that is because if you're not comfortable with the game, you could accidentally make something really overpowered or really fucking useless, right? By not understanding the mechanics. So you might not want to do that right away, but after you've gotten comfortable both with the quick assembly and with the game, just running it in general, yeah, you could absolutely start stealing role skills from the other roles. And then also, if we build on, on top of that, all of the NPC stat blocks in the compendium, if you look, all of those monsters have the role attached to them, right? So if you look at the Baylor, it says level 20 elite hunter. So you can go and look at the Baylor stat block and say, okay, this is a hunter type enemy. Does it have any abilities I could steal for my own hunter type enemy, right? Because all of them are typed out that way. So you could also steal from the existing NPC stat blocks there. So between stealing from the other roles and stealing from the other stat blocks in the compendium, you definitely have a lot of options for how you could like mix and match and steal and adjust.
What is the Baylor's reference in Final Fantasy?
I think it might just be brain. The flying eyeball things. Why can't I think of what they're called? Brain?
Eyeball things?
Yeah, I can't, I'm blanking. The Arimons. The eyeballs with the wings?
Yeah.
I think it's just supposed to be that. I mean, I'm not, I'll admit I'm not 100% positive, but I think it's just one of these funny guys.
Yeah, I can see that.
Right? I think that's what it is.
Yeah, because there are some of them that it's like, this is obvious, like the Gargantuous, that's just the behemoth, like straight up. The second one, the second variant, Humbaba, is just straight up a behemoth.
Yes. Yeah.
Also, I'm sure they took the name Humbaba from something.
Probably.
But can you imagine the humor of like, you must fight Humbaba, and everyone's like, this is gonna be so great. What goofy ass monster has that name and it's a 50-foot tall behemoth? And you're like,
oh, you're like, oh, okay, well, never mind.
And then it speaks to you in perfect English and says, I heard you talking shit like I wouldn't find out.
Yeah.
You're like,
you got something to say? So yeah, basically the thing that's kind of funny about the quick assembly is, in a way, it seems like it would be limiting, but because of the way it's designed, it is both limiting but also has a lot of untapped potential. It's kind of it's a funny paradox there. Also worth noting that each of the roles in this section, it also mentions tactics, rewards, and customizations. So the tactics is like the suggested rotation routines that this type of enemy should do. So just going with the brute because it's the first one. It's like, brutes generally alternate between normal attacks and strong attacks. So they could have a kind of routine that's normal attack, strong attack, crush, restart. Right? So they give you some suggested tactics. And then in terms of rewards, it's like brutes can be a source of hard-hitting weapons that can ignore resistances or grant unique effects while the user is in crisis, as well as items that increase the user's might or improve their hit point recovery. Defeating a brute could also reward the PCs with sturdy, long-lasting materials. And then for customizations, it says, brutes should never have good defense scores or boast accuracy or damage on par with hunters and mages. They already have the highest hit points, so it's good if the heroes can hit them reliably. Champion brutes should have ways to recover from status effects from time to time, forcing the group to apply them again. So, it also gives you some suggestions on like, how to run them, what to do with them, all that fun shit. Then there's the boss skills, which are pretty much what they sound like. They are additional skills that you give to boss type monsters, and they are broken up. I think there's 40 of them. And they are broken up into, which is way more than I was expecting, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
They're broken up into like sections. They're broken up into types, I guess I should say. So the first one is battlefield skills, which is like ongoing effects or like auras on the battlefield that have a permanent effect. Then there's control skills, which is like denying or punishing heroes for certain actions. Then you have destructive skills, which are just big fucking damage. Then there is elemental skills, which are elementally based skills. That one's, self-explanatory. Then after elemental skills, you have objective skills, which are skills that grant the boss an ability to gain a serious edge during conflicts that revolve around a clock. So basically abilities that let you manipulate clocks. And then you have summoner skills, which is basically bosses that keep bringing in goons and other little bitches. And then the last one is survival skills, which is skills that just make it so the boss is harder to kill, harder to hit, more of a pain in the ass, regeneration and camouflage and adaptive affinities, defensive stance, that kind of shit. And then you have, after the boss skills, you have the negative skills, which are, again, pretty much what they sound like. They're skills that are a negative. They give the monster a debuff of some kind, but in return, you can get an additional role or boss skill that you can add on top of the stat block. Stuff like final detonation, where when the enemy dies, they blow up and hurt their friends, or final resort, final restore, when this NPC is reduced to 0 hit points or forced to leave, each of the enemies present on the scene recover a heavy amount of hit points or mind points. So like the enemy leaves and the players heal. There's one that like they inflict status debuffs on their friends. Some kind of bad thing happens in trade for another skill. And then the species skills after that are what I was talking about before, where you pick the species of the particular NPC, and that gives you some extra customization options based on the specific species. In terms of how this differs from the original design system, like I said, it gives you a list and stuff, but also, if I can find there is a little section that says what's different exactly. NPCs are always level 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. The NPCs always have at least one vulnerability unless a specific gimmick or special rule changes that. Vulnerability to physical damage grants a single additional skill, not two. NPCs cannot use equipment, which is kind of a big thing because equipment... Basically, if you give NPCs equipment, you can potentially make them really overpowered and break the game pretty easily. So part of the quick assembly was taking that particular element out of things. So that's less of a problem. Mm-hmm. Basically the idea of giving the boss monster a magic sword might make them a little too good. Fictionally, they can have a magic sword. Mechanically, you might not want to do that. That is after the quick assembly. Then we get to the compendium. So obviously the compendium is a big ass list of pre-made NPC stat blocks. We are not going to go through the entire compendium. We would be here for 4 days. So, because there's quite a lot in here. A couple things that are worth kind of noting about the NPC stat blocks in the compendium. They are sorted alphabetically. Some of the monsters are just individuals, and some of them are by families. So, for example, the Minotaur is a singular stat block, but then if you go to Outlaws is like 3 human stat blocks. Like it's like 3 or 4 different human stat blocks. So some of them are like based on a family of creatures, and some of them are a singular creature. Other things worth noting: none of the NPCs in this book were built with the quick assembly method as a base, and then they added on top of it. They created their own abilities, but they started with the quick assembly method as sort of the baseline. Which means none of the monsters have equipment, because again, like I said, they kind of took that out as an element. I think if they were to make a second edition of this game, they would just completely remove that and not even deal with it. So fictionally, certain enemies will have equipment, but the equipment will just be a skill that they use on their stat block. Like I think one of the Outlaws has like is it the Outlaw stat blocks? No, maybe it's a different one. There's a character that has like an electro gauntlet thingy. The electro gauntlet thingy is not a piece of a literal equipment on their sheet. It's an ability.
I don't know about the electro gauntlet, but I know that my favorite of the outlaws, the Jada Ronin, has like a named sword, Ichimonji.
Yeah. Exactly. So it has a named sword. The named sword is a skill. It's an attack that the NPC can use. It's not literally in a piece of equipment on their stat block. However, if the players beat them and want to take the sword, they can. You as the GM will just have to potentially design that reward. They moved around where status effect immunities are on the stat block sheets. No biggie. Some new keywords that are worth pointing out. Like I said, all of the NPCs in this book have the roles. They all have the role keyword on them, so you know kind of what their role is. They also have something that says part. So if a stat block says part, it means it's meant to be a part of a bigger main body. So for example, the first stat block in the list is the Adamantharion, which has his main body and his front and back legs, I think. So the front and back legs are parts. Some creatures are marked as solo, which means the players are intended to fight it solo without anyone else helping. Some of the creatures are marked as unique, which is to say they are one of a kind. They are a named special boy. There is no other like them. They are the unique guy or girl or thing or it or monster or whatever. And then some of them have villain, which just means they are intended to mechanically, they get Ultima points and they're intended to be a villain to the players. Another really useful thing that they added in this book is the approaches. I don't know if you looked at these at all, but all of these stat blocks in the compendium have advantageous and disadvantageous like keywords on them. Basically, there's an up and a down arrow on all of the stat blocks, and it tells you what is good against the monster and what is bad against the monster. So if something is advantageous, like for example, you're fighting an ice golem and it says fire damage and it's the advantageous, meaning the arrow pointing up has fire damage next to it, that means fire damage good against this enemy. If it's disadvantageous, that means don't use this, so ice damage would be on that same ice golem. So basically, what that means for you as the GM is you can look at any stat block really, really quickly and see, okay, what's good against this thing? What's bad against this thing? Do my players have the necessary tools to deal with the good or the bad that this creature has? So if the creature's weak to, like we said before, if the creature's weak to light damage and my players don't have any light damage, then you want to take a note of that. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't use it. You just want to be aware of that. And it won't just be damage typings. It'll also say like status effects that are good or bad versus the enemy. If something like MP loss is good or bad, dispel effects, spells with long duration spells, if those are good or bad against the enemy. It's just like a general guideline of this will work well and this will work poorly, intended for you as the GM to look at it and go, okay, I have an idea of what this guy's deal is. And then there's some basic guidelines on each of the compendium stat blocks where it mentions environments that they'll be in. It mentions allies that they might potentially have, which is to say other NPCs you might want to pair with this NPC. And then their tactics, which like we mentioned before, is the routine, the rotation that they follow and how that works. And then rewards. I think a lot of GMs will really appreciate the rewards section because every stat block has a suggestion of these are good rewards that make sense for this kind of enemy. They're not specific, like it's not necessarily, it's not going to say this enemy should drop a flame tongue, but it'll say kinds of rewards. So for example, if we go back to our buddy the Baylor, for rewards, it says they might drop an accessory that improves the user's magic defense or grants resistance to dark damage, an unsettling eye-like gemstone material, forbidden story-bending revelations whispered by the Baylor as they fade out of existence. It's basically just what might this enemy drop or have, or what might be useful from them. Both, it could be a mechanical item, but it can also be like a fictional thing. There's a lot of potential things that the rewards could be, but it's just really to give you an idea. But honestly, this is the kind of thing people have been asking for in D&D for I don't know how long at this point. So glad to see it here.
Yeah. Crazy.
Right? Like, glad somebody did it.
Yeah, it really, Dungeons & Dragons is just a wealth of great game design information, and not from the actual game design itself, but from people looking, being like, wonder what players want out of this game. Oh, yeah. enemy behaviors, rewards, and or other valuable information during a fight.
Yeah.
Well, if they're not going to do it, shit, we're going to do it.
Honestly, the tactics, the routines thing for me in particular with this book was one of the most helpful parts of the entire book, because it reframed a little bit. I can't remember. I think the core book does mention doing something along the lines of that routine thing somewhere, but it makes it a little more explicit in this bestiary, and having it so that the tactics are listed above all of these NPC stat blocks really put it into perspective how I should run enemies in this game, but also how I should design them. Because sometimes I found myself running into a situation where I was designing the enemy in such a way that I was like, okay, I'm giving them all of these abilities, but why would he ever do ability X over ability Y? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But if there's a rotation to the abilities, oh, okay, he does ability X, then he does ability Y, that makes a lot more sense. You know what I mean? And I wasn't in that mindset before. So now that I've seen that, I'm like, oh, okay, this gives me some new options. Or not even, I don't know, maybe not even new options, just a new angle to think about it, I guess, is probably a better way to put it. I don't. Does that make sense? Am I babbling? I don't know. Where am I going?
No, I get you. Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. Because that was actually a thing I ran into quite a few times, particularly when I was designing like a boss monster. I'd be like, okay, the boss monster has like 6 different potential actions or things they can do, but it seems like only 2 of them are really worth it most of the time. So how do I make it so that all of them are useful? It's like, oh, okay, well, if they're going through a specific rotation, that automatically makes all of them, if not useful, at least they're going to do all of them, right? At least the players are going to see each of them. So yes, it is funny that I saw the rewards and the tactics thing, and I was like, oh, this is a thing people have been asking D&D to do for a really long time now. Glad somebody did it. Mm-hmm. That's nice. Yeah, and all of the rewards too, in particular, are interesting because they all have different, like, the reward descriptors are all a little bit different. Like, if you go to the Basilisk, for example, it says a weapon with a basilisk eye, quality 1000 zenny. When you hit one or more enemies with this weapon, those enemies become watched by this weapon. After one of the more enemies is watched by this weapon, recover from one or more status effects. Each of those enemies lose 10 hit points and stop being watched. So that one is explicitly, oh, this drops a very specific weapon because somebody probably just had an idea for what that basilisk should do and they did it. You know what I mean?
That's fucking
But
cool.
Other ones will be like, drop this kind of a weapon or this style of armor or this kind of a material. You know, some of them are a little more vague, some a little more specific. So there's variation in them, which is fun too. Because it would also be, it would be a little boring too if it was like, here's just a list of rare items that different stuff drops and that's it.
Yeah, you definitely don't want that.
I mean, you could do it. It wouldn't be as interesting as what this particular. It wouldn't be as interesting as the way this book did it.
No, it would. What I'm saying is, it would waste all of the really interesting groundwork that the game has laid for you by just giving you a list of shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Then there's a brief little. Before all the compendium, technically, there's a brief little section on making adjustments, which is basically, you know, the monster stat block you might want to use might not be the right level, or you might want to take a champion enemy and turn it into a soldier enemy or something like that. Basically, I want to use this stat block, but I need to change it, and it's just a guidance on how to make those adjustments. You know, how to adjust their hit points and their mind points, what to do with their accuracy checks and their damage, what kind of skills to give them or not give them, what kind of features can you add or take away that don't like drastically change the stat block. It also mentions some limitations, like it says, where is it? So, compared to levels, ranks are a bit more difficult to adjust. In particular, foes of a rank of champion 3 or higher are usually designed from the ground up as a major boss, which makes them impossible to properly downgrade to a soldier or an elite. And the same can be said for the opposite. Turning a soldier into a champion 3, for instance, is less a matter of numbers and more about entirely reimagining their function within the conflict. So it even says you can adjust a lot of these stat blocks, but there's also limitations. So if you try to push beyond those limitations, be aware you might have to do extra work or, you know, reconsider your plan, basically. Which is good to acknowledge, you know, we have this system. This system works well, but it only works well in a certain range band. You know, you can't break the entire thing and expect magic, which I think is a fair way to put it, a fair way to describe it. Do you have any, I don't know if you looked through any of the stat blocks, you had anything you were like, this is crazy?
I mean, look no farther than Babylonica. Totally not Alexander, Babylonica.
Oh yes, the giant fortress golem thing.
Oh my god, it's so fucking cool, dude.
That one being a great example of singular enemy broken up into parts, because that one is energy core, towering apparatus, and oh no, that was just the two. So yeah, that one's the energy core and the towering apparatus are like two separate pieces of the same enemy.
Yeah. Did you notice that the energy core is resistant to everything other than light and dark, in which case it's just fucking immune?
Yes. I believe if there's a way to overcome that, though.
Maybe. Expose the energy core.
Yeah, there's a way to there's like a way to expose it or do so. I was looking at that one a little bit. I don't know if I don't remember if I finished reading it or not.
No. So yeah, you can't remove its resistances. Basically, you have to fight the apparatus, which is resistant to most things, and the only way to do like real genuine damage to it is by attacking the core. And the core has very little health compared to everything else.
Ah, okay. I see.
This fight. So this is cool because this is one of the reasons why I picked this fight out, is because this fight is grueling and it can feel like a slog. Because, you know, the apparatus, the actual body of Babylonica has 560 health, and 280 mind point, or no, what is that? It has a crisis of 280, and its actual energy core has 110 hit points, and it's resistant. They're both resistant to physical. But this is one of those few times where I think this works really well, because it's not like you're fighting. You can see birds flying around its head, and they are very small. This thing is probably like 100 meters tall. Yeah, it's gonna feel.
Yeah, there's a massive full page art of it.
Yeah,
is what Isaiah's talking about.
It's enormous. So, yeah, I expect it to feel kind of like a slug, but when you kill... I'm thinking about this specifically because I was playing Borderlands 4 yesterday, and I was fighting one of the vault bosses, and it's a really... It was like... I started fighting it about 15 minutes before you went to bed, and then another 10 minutes after that, so it was almost a 30-minute fight. And just because something has a lot of health doesn't necessarily mean that it feels like you're not getting anywhere. You know what I mean? It's like when you fight something like the Adamantoids in actual Final Fantasy, where it's like every noticeable chunk that you remove from the health bar feels genuine. It feels like you're getting somewhere. And I feel like this boss, just through some of the things it can do, makes it really feel like that, which is kind of cool.
I think also it the mechanics of Fabula give you a lot of potential to have this felling the Colossus vibe work, because again, because there's so many different crazy tactical, not even tactical, just like interesting ideas you can build into a stat block. Like, in a way, the stat blocks, like the NPCs that you make in Fabula, are the core mechanic for the GM, because rather than the game itself having a whole bunch of crazy mechanics, the basic core mechanics of the game are pretty straightforward. Where things get interesting is in class player skills and how those can combine with each other. And then on the GM side, it's how the NPC's stat blocks can add or change mechanics and make their own unique mechanics within themselves. So you don't need to worry about designing bespoke mechanics for a bunch of different situations. Instead, you design basic mechanics, and then when you want more complicated bespoke mechanics, you just make that part of the fight itself. Right? Like, that's kind of the secret trick. Like, you could design a mechanic where you climb up on the big colossal enemy and you have to like hit some kind of a weak point, or you could just have a stat block that has all of those rules built into it, and then you only use it for that particular fight, so your game doesn't get overbloated with mechanics. Right? And that's just one example. I mean, there's a bazillion jillion, like, again, one of the things that makes this bestiary really valuable is you can look at all these wacky mechanics that a lot of these monsters have and go, oh, I wouldn't have never thought of that. Another good one is the Bugaboo, which is this little like jack-o'-lantern reaper guy. It's basically a reference to a Tonberry, and he has an ability where he goes into a mode where he's stalking a player character, and then he hits them with a specific attack. And if he hits them with that specific attack while stalking the player character drops to 1 HP.
It's pretty gangster.
Yeah. Which is obvious reference to Tonberry.
I love this little dude's ability names: Smile Carver, Vain Gordy, Scorching Wisplight, Gleeful Sharpening, Jack-O-Mark,
he sharpens his
and
sight.
Open Wide. And he's just a little guy. I love him so much.
He's also like a spirit of death.
I almost want one of these little bastards to be an Arcana just so I can have him.
He's like a nightmare incarnate, basically.
Me doing the fucking Aang from Avatar when he's spinning the marbles, just like, look at my little guy.
This is my buddy.
It's like in the it's like the Amazing World of Gumball when they fucking piss Anais off and she starts karate chopping everything, and they're just holding her by the scruff of her neck and she's just tearing shit up.
She's just murdering dudes.
Yeah, I just want that for the Bugaboo, just holding it out and watching it murder things like a little handheld blender.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Actually, to a point that you were talking about, like using abilities to sort of manufacture mechanics, look no farther than the fucking Udex. Have you seen that thing?
I don't. Did I look at that? What's it under?
It's Udex under the Ictiodaimon. It's this sick like Valkyrie Knight chick that looks like what the hell, Gabranth.
Why am I not seeing it?
IUDEX.
Oh, there it is. Found it. Yes.
Look at its other actions. Absolute law. I'll just read it. The Udex can use an action and spend 20 mind points to declare one of the following laws. Each law applies to every enemy the Udex can see, and its effects last until the end of the scene or until a different law is declared. First law, Intelligenti Pauca, forbids recovering mind points and recovering from status effects. Pro Bono Pacis, forbids performing the attack action, performing free attacks, casting offensive spells, and causing the Udex and or its allies to suffer status effects. And then finally, Verba Non Acta, forbids performing the guard or skill actions. After an enemy violates a law, they become a transgressor until the end of their next turn, but only after the infringing action or effect has been fully resolved. And then underneath, you get special rules. Do ut des. After a transgressor succeeds on a check that would allow them to fill or erase 2 more sections of a clock, that transgressor must choose one option. Fill or erase 1 fewer sections of said clock, or let the Udex fill or erase 1 section of a clock of the Udex's choice. Duralex, damage dealt to the Udex by non-transgressors is halved, and Erga Omnis. After 1 or more enemies becomes transgressors, the Udex deals 10 light damage to each of them. Creatures that lose hit points this way also suffer shaken. So there's just a whole mini mechanic built into this fight that's super cool. Yeah. And these guys are champion level enemies. So champion 3. So you're really probably only going to fight one of them. They are villain class enemies. But can you imagine a like Throne Watcher, Throne Defender fight where there's 2 of these jackasses?
Yeah.
And they're just overlapping the absolute laws on you. And like, dude, that would be such a pain in the ass fight, but it would be so memorable. Like, I would be furious in that fight, but after we won or lost, I'd be like, that was so fucking cool.
Right. I mean, that's exactly that kind of, that's the kind of vibe I'm talking about, where you're essentially creating these mini mechanics via the stat block. And the thing that also makes that fun is, one, again, like I said, you don't need to have a bazillion bespoke mechanics within the game itself, but also, if you're only using them once or twice for a couple of specific enemies, they don't get stale or annoying. Right? Like, this kind of mechanic used over and over and over again would probably start to get annoying, but used on a particular fight for a particular boss, much more bearable, right? Like, that's a big part of it. Yeah, I mean, we could do this all day. We could just jump around on random stat blocks and be like, look at this cool thing it does. So we'll have to control ourselves, but trust me, there's lots of cool shit you can look through and potentially use in this book.
Yeah, there's a lot of things
that I've been trying to do myself.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the Diablosaur, like, we were joking that the Brute is the Devil Joe, but this thing is like actually the Devil Joe.
True. Yeah. The Diablosaur, yeah.
The
Big angry boy.
The Gargantuous, Gargantuas is so sick. I love these. I love the Behemoth. I hate the way that they look in Final Fantasy, but like, I love the idea of them just the biggest, angriest, most fuck off violent thing that's ever lived.
Yep.
It has a bunch of cool, like, this one's got a really cool one where its tactics, its rotation is really interesting because it shifts based on if its health is even or odds, which I like a lot.
Yeah. There's also enemies whose tactics shift based on even or odd turn.
Ooh, I didn't know that. That's cool too.
Yeah, there's quite a few enemies that do that. Yeah.
I'm really sad that there's no art for Humbaba because it looks...
There is.
Where?
It's the very beginning of the book. If you literally right after the table of contents. Yeah.
Oh, fuck it. There it is. Oh, dude, that's so sick.
It's fucking huge.
Brother. Big. Yeah. Those are birds around its head, dog.
Yes.
Big man on campus.
Yes. Big lad.
Oh, and it's got wings. Dude, the thing. What's worse than the Behemoth? A Behemoth with wings.
Yeah.
That boy will fuck your entire shit up.
Yep.
Oh, actually, I know we're not going to do this too much. I like that they gave us. So, right, like you were having us do the challenges against the Arcana. In this, they actually gave us stat blocks for Arcana if you wanted to fight them.
Yes. So there are. Yeah, I was gonna bring these up. So there are six new Arcana that they added in this bestiary, and yes, each of them has a stat block if you want to fight them. You don't have to, but you know, if you want to use it as an option. Mm-hmm. In my defense, I've been making them not just straight up fights on purpose.
No, I know. I'm not saying what you're doing is bad, but like, it's cool that we have actual stat blocks for them now in case Gora was like, I'm tired of this challenge, bitch. Fight me. Throw hands.
Yeah, so I was going to say the last little section of this book is basically there's a couple of new options, what it calls new options. Some of it is there are some sample companions for you to use for the faithful companion ability that the Wayfarer gets, which again, another great example of this game being able to design mechanics within the stat block, because if you look at the sample companion called the Gang, it's a companion that is technically 3 individual creatures, and you swap which creature is currently active, and that gives you a different effect for the Wayfarer based on the creature currently active, kind of like Pokemon Trainer in Smash.
So cool.
Yeah.
It's a Robin, a little black bear, and a pangolin.
Yeah.
By the way,
called the Gang.
We have a stat block for a motherfucking Chocobo, baby.
We do have it. Yes, there's a Chocobo companion in here. What the fuck's he called? Tau. Yeah. Yes,
I saw this and got immediately really hyped because I was like, I'm happy that we have horses. I kind of wish they were Chocobo. we look at the blue. We look at the art and is blue chicken. Like, can we do some divine fuckery and say that our horses are actually Chocobo?
Discuss another time. But yes, we have a little stat block for a little Chocobo. It's a companion. It's not a full on like enemy stat block, but yeah.
Oh, apparently they're called Pavis. That's like the actual name for the animal. Tau is just a special Pavis.
No, Tau's his name.
Yeah. I thought they were just called Tau.
Oh, no. Yeah, no. Pavis is the bird. Tau is his name. Yes, a sacred Pavis named Tau. So yes, there's some sample companions, and there's 6 new Arcana, and then there is a couple of optional rules. Now, I'm not going to go through the Arcana necessarily, but we have... I'll tell you what they are because they're all legally distinct something. We have Gorgon, who is legally distinct female Titan. We have Harpy, who is legally distinct Garuda. Male Garuda. We have Phoenix, who is a Phoenix. No legal distinction required. We have Undyne, who is legally distinct Shiva, not gender bent on that one. And then we have Unicorn, who is legally distinct Ixion.
Yeah.
And Zernitra, who is legally distinct Bahamut.
Yeah.
Also gender bent.
Yes, also gender bent. Still has the massive titties, though.
Sort of. Yeah.
Look, say what you will. Final Fantasy 14 Bahamut got some big titties.
Not exactly how I'd describe it, but sure. The thing that I think is interesting about these Arcana, and they even mention this, these Arcana in this particular book are a little more intricate and a little more complicated than the Arcana presented in the base game. So basically, if you give it to your players, basically it says, if your group agrees to it, Gorgon, Harpy, Phoenix, Undyne, and Unicorn can be chosen as starting Arcana. Well, so actually, no, there's a different bit. It says somewhere that like these Arcana are a little more complicated than the base book. So just, be aware that they're probably going to feel cooler.
Yes.
Also, Zenitra, probably not an acceptable starting Arcana because she's a little too cool.
Strong.
She's a little crazy.
Choose one creature you can see. That creature heals 999 hit points.
Yeah, and all status effects.
Nitroclism, or Nitroclism. You deal 30 damage to every enemy you can see. The type of this damage is light, and if you are not in crisis, or dark if you are in crisis, damage dealt by this effect ignores resistances and immunities and absorptions of champion ranked enemies.
Yeah.
You just look at them and go, delete, and they go immune, and then you laugh. You laugh really hard.
No. The thing that I thought was interesting, though, in particular about these Arcana is if you look at their merge abilities. So, because Isaiah is playing an Arcanist in our game, and we're using the playtest rules, and technically the beta playtest rules added an ability to Arcanist where they have a thing called a pulse. So you have a merge, which is like what happens when you summon the creature, and then you have your dismiss, which is what happens when you get rid of them. In the base game, the merge would be like a buff when you summon them, and then the dismiss would be usually like a big attack or a big effect. The pulse that they added in the playtest is sort of like you are merged, you can also do this extra thing. These new Arcana in the Bestiary don't have a pulse, but if you read their merge abilities, the pulse is basically built into the merge. Did you notice that?
I did. I thought that was interesting. I
like that better, I think.
I don't. I don't, because I like that the pulse was a clear merge ability you had. Like, it being part of the merge is nice, but I liked the separation that pulse gave you.
I mean, the thing is that pulse has some weird restrictions on it, so I feel like building it all into the merge gives you more wiggle room to like design something a little different.
True.
Especially because like pulse rules as written, pulse can only be used in conflicts.
True. Very fair.
Like,
well, to be fair, you can only fuse during conflicts as well. So
you can only merge during conflicts? I don't think that's true.
Yeah, it says in a conflict scene you can merge, yeah.
May bind a summon a later encounter. May use an action to summon the power of one of your Arcana. If you take this skill. No.
Oh, I was under the assumption that I could only be merged in conflict scenes. I would have been doing a lot more shit outside of conflict scenes had I known that.
No, hold on. We're doing it live. We're double checking right now. All right. Bind and summon. You bind an Arcana to your soul and summon them later. The game master will tell you the details, blah, blah, blah. You may use an action and spend 40 mind points to summon an Arcana you have bound. The details of the process explained on the next page. If you take this skill at character creation, you begin play with an Arcana already bound to you. Choose from the list, blah, blah, blah. Other than that, you obtain new Arcana through exploration and story. You summon Arcana, you gain its merge. Those benefits last until it's dismissed. You cannot summon an Arcana while already merged with one. You must first dismiss. Yeah, no, you can merge outside of a fight. Yeah. So you could, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, the merge gives you more wiggle room, which means design-wise, you can have more wiggle room in terms of what the Arcana could potentially do with the merge. Which is why I think that building it into the merge might be. It also just, I feel like it's a little bit cleaner to just have merge dismiss. Like, just from a design logic standpoint, like you have activate, deactivate, whereas pulse is like this kind of in-between thing, which would be fine, but feels a little weird. Like, because this game doesn't have anything equivalent to a bonus action, pulse feels slightly out of place a little bit to me. So I feel like just tying it into the merge cleans that up a little.
I get what you're saying. I see it as a start during finish. Like,
right, which
you divide it into 3 specific sections.
I get, but I don't know. I just don't. It just seems like, I don't know. It just seems easier to just have on off, and like on gives you options to activate during. Like, I don't know. I like the idea that it's built into the merge there. I feel like that is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. I do just prefer having pulse.
I also like that they have more shit in
That's
general
true.
on
they do have more shit.
Arcana. Like, way more shit. Like, in comparison to the Arcana in the base book, the Arcana in the base book are fucking lame by comparison.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind maybe updating at least Princess to these new rules just to see.
Well, you kind of already updated with because you have the Pulse version anyway.
Yeah, But like, you know, not only do they have the pulse, but like, you know, like for example, Phoenix has cleansing warmth, ember feather rain, shit like that. Like,
sure.
They just
you want to do all that work for me?
I mean, I would. I don't think I'll do it 100%. And this is good because like, we could just turn like I was gonna do get the new Arcana thing anyway, heroic skill. But
well, that's a whole other.
We could like diegetically upgrade her rule set. It'd be cool.
I mean, sure. I also think both can exist right next to each other too. I don't think like I think you could have some that have a pulse and some that don't too. I think that could work fine.
True.
I don't think they would do that necessarily, but I think you could. Listen, I already got to come up with all these fucking ideas for NPCs and shit. Arcana are a whole other problem. Because I'm always worried about making the Arcana like too OP. I feel like it's really easy to make them like too good, you know?
I don't know. I feel like you should just send it.
Yeah, but I can't give you all the fun toys and nobody else.
Sir, Gennaro has a fucking robot gun that deals 20 damage around for free 99.
After you talked him into it.
Yeah, I know what I did. I'm not going to pretend I'm any better. I'm just saying he's got that thing's about to do a crazy amount of damage in 10 levels for him.
It's hard to have like cool summons and then also make everyone else feel like they have cool thing to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, look,
but also
Summoner is always, in my opinion, Summoner is always the coolest class in any Final Fantasy game. I did this on purpose.
I'm just saying, that is part of my worry of like making the Arcana too good and then everyone else feeling like, oh, his toy's cooler than mine. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
also, I don't know. I think no matter how cool my shit is, I don't think there's any beating Senna in terms of pure utility. Like, those flowers are fucking nuts.
I mean, sure, that's its own thing for sure. Anyway, yes, the new Arcana in this book are very cool. Like the new companions are very cool. In terms of the variant options, nothing crazy. Basically, just a couple of suggestions. They mentioned category-based affinities, which I actually do like this rule. I'm not going to implement it now because we're so deep into the campaign that I feel like...
oh, dude, that's valid. That's so valid.
Right? Like I don't want to upend things, but I do like it. Basically, the idea is instead of... Because base rules, the game functions off of physical damage is just physical damage, and that's it. There's no distinction. Category-based affinities is just an enemy can have resistance to the different types of weapons, because each of the weapons goes into a category: arcane, bow, brawling, dagger, firearm, flail, heavy spear, sword, and thrown. So you could say this enemy is like resistant to bow and brawling weapons, bow and brawling category weapons, and then not resistant to sword and flails and shit. Like, I do like the granularity that could potentially add, but that would also require that you guys as players have different weapons ready to go, which this far into the campaign is like, would feel a little weird, right?
Well, and also you run into the unfortunate situation where we're using custom weapons, which kind of makes this difficult.
Right. Well, you'd have to get new weapons or side weapons, and yeah, you could do it with custom weapons too. You could like buy custom weapons. There's ways to do it. Again, I think you just need to establish it earlier on. Well, no, because what you would just make it so that players you would just make it so the players are like, okay, I'm gonna go buy a sword, and then you just make a custom weapon sword. You know what I mean? Like, and then just say that you buy that from this blacksmith guy or whatever. Like, you could just do something like that. Like, it's still doable with custom weapons. There's no reason it's not.
I could foresee some weirdness
from designing more custom weapons. That's all you'd be doing. You'd just be making more custom weapons for yourself.
Right, but like that, you'd get into a thing where players would just have a bajillion custom weapons all the time, which kind of defeats the point of the custom weapon being like a unique thing that's special to them.
Well, either you have a bunch of custom weapons or you have a bunch of regular weapons. Like, this is going to necessitate that either way to a certain amount.
to a certain amount.
I mean, it literally says this rule is great for groups that like collecting many different weapons, but it can frustrate players with specific aesthetics in mind for their heroes, such as a dedicated spear warrior or gunslinger. Only use it if everyone's enthusiastic about the idea. So like,
yeah, it's sort of recognized what I'm saying. If you have,
it's recognizing what you're saying. I'm saying my point is that I don't think custom weapons specifically make it any more difficult than not using custom weapons. Like, I don't think that particular factor matters. I think it's the same amount of complexity with basic weapons or custom weapons. Like, that particular element doesn't add that much. I acknowledge that it could be annoying in general if you're not on board. And then there's some mention of the variant on the breach rule. Basically just because breach base is working off weapons. If you're using enemies that don't have weapons, because none of the enemies in this book have weapons, it's just a variant on that ability. And then there's this pressure stagger optional rule mechanic, which basically is the stagger system from Final Fantasy 16, funny enough, where I think Final Fantasy 12 maybe also has a stagger system. There's a couple of, or 13? Might be 13 actually. There's a couple of Final Fantasy games that have like a stagger thing. Basically you have a clock, you have a stagger clock, or you have a stagger clock for the enemy. You hit them with either a certain type of weapon or a vulnerability. It increases their clock. Once you fill their clock, they go into a stagger state. They lose their turn and they become vulnerable to a whole bunch of damage types. That's the basic idea of that system. And then obviously by adding that mechanic, you can also potentially design NPC mechanics around the stagger system. So for example, it says a boss whose pressure clock fills by 2 sections whenever one of their soldier minions is defeated. A boss whose vulnerabilities and pressure points change upon entering crisis for the first time. A boss whose pressure clock fills by 1 section at the start of each of their turns, as long as they're suffering from 2 specific status effects. So like, it's another avenue for like tactical potential. Again, interesting idea, not something I want to implement this late into a campaign, because again, that can be awkward. Just trying to like throw in a whole new thing. I also feel like this stagger pressure mechanic would kind of throw off the balance, because you have the ability to make an enemy skip their turn, which is kind of crazy. So I feel like if I were to throw this in there, I'd have to also account for it in terms of balance design, and then I'd be relearning this problem all over again, and I'd be doing it at quite a high level because we're dealing with like level 30 enemies at this point. So like, we're not doing all that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's no point. Not right now.
It's an interesting idea. Although I do feel like it's a little weird that it's one-sided in that you can only stagger enemy. Like the players can stagger NPCs, but it doesn't go the other way. So I feel like this is just a huge player buff.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't say it's like it's exclusively a buff because of the fact that you have to fight to get it. Like once you have it, then yeah, it's go time and you're just doing crazy damage. But because it's a clock-based
but it's another
thing,
option. So
yes, it is another option, but I think about it this way, right? Like you're sacrificing consistent vulnerability for big cinematic like bully beatdowns. So I think it probably comes out to be about the same.
Because they don't take the double damage until they're staggered, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd say
that's true.
It probably equates to the same thing. It just will feel more cinematic when you actually nail it.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much, and then that's basically the end of the bestiary. The last couple of pages, there's a profile list, which just lists all of the enemies. It lists them in level order, and then it has their roles, their rank, their species, and what page they're on, which is great. to just go through and be like, oh, I'm looking for a level 20 enemy, and just scroll down, look at all the level 20 guys in the list. Fantastic. And then after the profile list, there is a couple of pages of sample formations, which are basically a couple of different enemy group combinations that you could potentially throw at your players to be like, oh, look, here's a, you know, they're pre-built encounters, which is fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that, I mean, I didn't look that closely at them to see kind of how they're designed or if they, you know, how well they work or whatever, but I see no reason to assume they wouldn't.
Agreed.
And yeah, and then that's the end of the book. Like I said, this is once again Fabula Ultima, just don't miss. It just don't miss. Like,
it really just don't miss. Yeah.
Every book gives you something good, something juicy to use, something to chew on. So you know, this one though, personally for me, this is the best Splat book of them all. Like, this is the best supplement book for sure, because it has the most usefulness, and I think will help you to generate the most ideas. Like, I think because designing encounters and NPCs is basically the hardest part of this game, this book will help you the most. You know what I mean?
For sure, yeah.
Like, it's just...
I would say this is like in... this is priceless for a GM. Like...
Yeah, the value per dollar is crazy. Like I said, this book is a must-have, in my opinion. Like, if you're gonna run this game without it, at this point... It's funny because I was running without it before, but now that I see it, I'm like, how did I ever exist without you? You know what I mean? Like, how could I?
I was just about to say, it's one of those things where in 2 years, you're going to be like, how do people do it without this?
Yeah. Yeah. It's literally that. So, yeah, I have nothing else to say. I can't glaze the bestiary enough. I mean, I have little nitpicks here and there, but they're so little that they're like kind of irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted some more role skills for each of the individual roles, maybe some more customizations. I would have liked a page of a spell list page of all of the spells that the players have or something like that. But that's not the end of the world. I forget, there's a couple of monster stat blocks I wanted that I'm like, oh, I'm sad that doesn't exist. Like, there's no Lich. A little disappointed there's no Lich, not gonna lie.
There kind of is. It's the it's not explicitly a Lich, but the fucking, where is it? The not the Necro Dragon, but the
I don't know.
Ictiodaimon. It's like, it's a little more Cthulhu coded, but it's basically a Lich.
Yeah, he's kinda. Yeah, he's a little too Cthulhu coded for me.
Fair enough.
But he's in that direction, I suppose. You're not totally wrong.
Do any of the Pandemoniums have like Lich coded abilities?
That's a good point. I didn't look at those fucking stat blocks.
Samael looks so cool.
Samael's crazy. Yeah, for context, there's like
7 deadly sins.
Pandemonium, seven deadly sins, but like cranked to the max as like crazy over the top JRPG mega boss demon things. They look sick.
Did you also kind of chuckle when they add the Baromets because of fucking dungeon meshing? You were like,
I did think it was funny. I don't think that's why it's there.
No, it's almost certainly not. But I looked at it and went, Goro would probably eat that.
The funny thing is, it looks like a weird
Senna, but
the funny thing is, it looks like a weird vegetable monster.
Yeah,
which I don't know. I don't know what's up with the Baromets, but yes, I did think about the Dungeon Meshi episode for sure. All right, you have any further glazing you'd like to do?
There's a bunch of monsters I could bring up that I really like and think are super cool. Like
there's
the Gallow Branch, the Dynagar, which is basically just the corals, the crazy like leopard cheetah or like leopard tiger things in Final Fantasy. Gigantes, the actual other Alexander. Yeah, they're so sick. The Mellow Court, I love the Mellow Court so much.
Oh, the slimes, yeah.
Yeah, they're adorable. I love them. They also just have straight up mechs. Like the mechs are wild. They're nuts.
There are mechs.
Yes. The war machines, the turrets. And,
yes, there are very Final Fantasy VII coded mechs.
Yeah, and what are the other ones called? There's like actual like armored cores in here.
Yep.
Oh god, it's fine.
There's a lot.
So cool. Yeah,
there's a lot of shit in this book.
They're sick.
Alrighty, well, that has been us. If you are so inclined, you can follow us on social media or not. Do whatever you want. I'm not your mom, but I will tell you, you should buy this book.
Mm-hmm. Buy book.
No,
it's good.
I was gonna say, you gonna get anything out there?
Book good.
Book good.
Bring back the Sam classic. Book good.
Book good. Monster cool.
Monster cool. Yeah, literally. Monster cool.
Monster cool.